States, so seeing how that's being, how we're assimilating into a new paradigm. It's like we're being shifted on a lot of levels. So it's important for us to be aware of what's happening in the world around us. It's so important to pay attention. A lot of people, they want to turn off the TV. They don't want to see what's going on, but you can't be of service if you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's always sort of been like sort of an issue to address within the quote unquote conscious community. The idea of people just being like, oh, love and light, man, let's shoot rainbows out of our butts and ignore all the bad stuff, sort of thing. Like, I mean, bringing it down to a grounded level. Like, I agree. Like, I have no problem watching CNN with a critical mindset, and also, like you said, to sort of be able to say like what is being put out there, what is being seen by the people, what are they absorbing, and then being able to have more of an empathetic connection to what society itself is going through. And you're right, like there's a lot of fear-based tactics that are running quite rampant these days. And it was interesting because, I mean, if we want, I think I'm okay getting into the Ebola thing off the start. Obviously, that's a big topic, and we'll just sort of use that to sort of bounce into some other ideas. And we'll bring on our buddy Joel actually in the next minute, and he'll be able to join us. And then I think we got our friend Andy, and we'll bring him on shortly as well. But it was interesting. We'll talk about Ebola. We'll talk about the ISIS thing. We can talk about inequality. We can talk about even just like the rallies that are happening in Hong Kong. Like, this is all micro macro type stuff. And yet, of course, like there's also the hope side of things, which in many cases are sort of hard to pick out because they don't really show up on mainstream news. And of course, one thing that I actually specifically want to bring into the conversation, and maybe this is something that we can do first before getting into the Ebola, is in terms of world news, world issues. This is a recent story, was the recent passing of Dr. Emoto. And a lot of people are familiar with him, and this was a pretty big deal because for a lot of people, he was a celebrity within the conscious community. He was a vanguard, a pioneer, who really helped summarize through almost a scientific study, something that we could tangibly look at and compare, where, if those of you who aren't familiar, many of you are who are tuned into the show, but just kind of summarizing it, emphasizing the idea of how much symbols as well as emotions, both verbally and non-verbally, can affect the structure of water specifically, and of course the idea that the human body is made up of 70, 80, 90% water, and bringing that awareness into ourselves of realizing how much the intention and the energy that we are putting out is affecting other people and also ourselves through our own thoughts. And I think that's an important thing because when we realize that, we realize that there's so much potential to be able to transmute a lot of the fear that is going on. So I think if Emoto was, if he had something to say in all this, I think he would want us to take away from his teachings the idea that, yes, there is hope. Yes, the water can be transformed through the power of love. And that's always the idea, is that you can't fight fear with fear, but you can transform it with love, sort of thing. So, in the spirit of Dr. Emoto, I think there's a lot that we can do to help change the world by carrying this awareness that he talked about with us while addressing some of these issues such as the Ebola, and by using that as a simple idea of not giving into the fear being put out. So what I was just going to say leading into the Ebola, if anybody wants to go back to Emoto, we can sort of segue and weave it through, of course. But I was going to say, it was interesting, I heard on the news today, and apparently Barack Obama has his own YouTube channel, and he puts out a YouTube video once a week or something. I actually haven't seen it, but CBC Radio in Canada was doing a little thing, and they said that it was a sound clip, and Barack Obama himself was saying, we have to make sure that we don't give in to the fear that is happening, and the fear and the anxiety and the hysteria. Like, he said that, which for me brings up this whole question, because I think a lot of people within this community, they're quick to sort of say, like, well, 9/11 was an inside job, therefore Ebola is a false flag thing, and they're just trying to depopulate the entire society, and they're trying to kill us all, and it's this big hoax, and they really just go full spectrum to like this one side. I sort of like to just play like this other side of like, maybe the conspiracy is that there isn't a conspiracy in the way that we think it is. Maybe we're just a bunch of humans doing the best we can, yet gosh darn it, we make mistakes and we're clumsy sometimes, and it's not really like this sort of a black hand tyrannical agenda taking place. But I mean, I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm just saying, like, let's just sort of like look mindfully at the different options, opposed to just saying like, oh well, this is a sort of a fringe radio show, therefore we're going to be talking about how Ebola is a big like hoax conspiracy. But is it? That's where we're going to get into the discussion, and there's a couple points that we can talk about. But yeah, just I guess on the Ebola thing itself, what have you heard related to the Ebola thing that has helped you?